nothing here that I could say I did on any other job.
I don't think we've gotten to the hardest part of this project yet. I think it's going to be the arches, the domes, and the minarets.
A lot of churches, synagogues, they're not huge structural elements. It's pretty rare to have something that's this architectural be made of a concrete structure.
Of the Facchina group of companies, we are a widely diverse set of construction companies. We have a very large presence in commercial concrete construction. They will build the traditional downtown office building and also the traditional parking structures, but really their focus is on the more complex projects. Turkish Embassy is a project that fulfills that obligation. It is a magnificent looking structure, and it looks great on paper and whatnot, but then you're burdened with the challenge of building the darn thing to make sure it all comes together properly.
We started out by scheduling each individual element, since there's several buildings. So we start out by the massive underground garage portion. Once we have the footprint completed, the crew starting immediately on the mosque. At the same time, we have 2 cranes available to start on the Turkish bath. Turkish bath substructure crew completes the guest house, and then at the very end we have the cultural center. Total duration right now looks to be about 55 weeks.
Yeah, the parking garage is important because it's the foundation for every building that's out here. But it also, with any project, the start of the job sets the tempo and gives you an idea on how the rest of the job's going to go.
The roof of the garage serves as the first floor of the mosque and the rest of the other buildings.
So how big is that total footprint?
Roughly 125,000 square feet. So another part of this job is the Turkish bath. It's adjacent to the garage. It steps down in elevation, it's approximately 15 feet.
And what's happening with all these steps?
That's a stair on grade that creates a stadium seating. So it's a multi-purpose area.
As we get above grade, that's where the difficult part of the job comes in. The most demanding structure on the project is the Turkish mosque. Its foundation covers roughly 15,000 square feet. From there, we have 29 domes, 210-foot minarets, 4 40-foot wide arches supporting a massive 80 cubic yard dome. The mosque is definitely the heartbeat of the job.
Real magic happens with our building information modeling. We literally can look at it from all sides, turn it upside down, and it's amazing the ideas and solutions that start shaking out of it when you get into that process.
Created my grid lines and my levels how you normally do to start a new project up.
Right.
Took the details from the drawings here and created this shop drawing. You've got all these intersecting arch beams happening here. How exactly are they going to frame this up and schedule out the pour sequencing? I don't think without this it would be an easy task to.
Right, yeah.
You know?
Well, visualizing in a tree definitely helps, I guess.
So what we ended up doing was we took the smallest dome that was on the job and poured 2 of them side by side. This was different for us. We wanted to make sure we did it right. So we bought the formwork and practiced. And my favorite part of a mock-up is you find out challenges that you didn't anticipate. The styrofoam ball that we use to make the dome is almost impossible to take out. When you have it 20 feet up in the air and you have a 13-foot diameter ball kind of wedged in between concrete, it becomes a pretty big headache.
Yeah, that was an adventure. We tried a lot of different ways, power washing, sandblasting, down to the hammer and chisel grind, getting them out.
Finally this weekend we actually had a breakthrough where we wrapped them in plastic and they ended up not adhering to the styrofoam itself. That was one of our big victories, which could potentially save us a lot of money because we feel we can reuse at least a couple of these forms.
There is one larger dome
That the styrofoam will not work on because it just don't make it that big. This is a 22-foot radius here.
Okay.
Using our management format here in the company, the interchange of information back and forth between one another was fantastic. An example is the large domes out here. We had recently completed the New World Symphony in Miami, which was an extraordinarily complex job. We constructed these massive sails and clouds down there with no straight faces on them anywhere. and we had to use structural stud framing. And so when the concrete guys, Paul Berry and his group, were looking at these domes out there, said, how are we going to frame these things? And this is way up in the air, they're big, they're heavy. With their exchange with the fellows in Florida, the suggestion was made we should use the structural stud, and it turned out magnificent.
Normally for us, one of the saddest days is when they pour concrete, because it covers up all of our work. On this project, it was probably the first one that it's ever occurred to me that it looks better with the concrete on it. When Facchina lands a project or is awarded a bid, they hire us to do our portion of the work, which is the reinforcing steel installation. The toughest day on this project was the day we were awarded it, because at that point it's no longer a piece of paper, it's something that has to come to reality. You know, your reputation is on the line. Once you accept the fact that it must be done, then we go to work and we break this job down into very simple pieces. So instead of 350,000 pieces of steel, we look at structures. Then we break that down into 4 or 5 buildings. That's more manageable yet still. And then it comes down to one dome. Now we're going to focus on one dome at a time and make it right.
We've come to the conclusion that simpler is better. Instead of getting a custom formwork for the main arch, we're basically building it like a large wall. It's worked on the courtyard, and that's what we're going to do when we get to the larger ones as well.
Right now, the key is to utilize all the equipment that's under us and be prepared for what's going above us and what we're going to need to hold the arches and hold the domes and all the crazy stuff that happens above the arches. How we're going to do the minarets, them platforms there, we will take them with a crane and we'll just keep picking them up and moving them up and moving them up.
The thing I'm most excited about is building that main dome and then stripping it and standing underneath of it and saying we did that. Because at that point we'll have the main arches done, we'll have the dome done, and I think it's going to be pretty awesome.
One of our other projects that this reminds me of was for the same customer, Balfour Beatty Construction, and that was the Capitol Visitor Center. And when you see your tower crane in front of the Capitol Dome, it sends a chill up your spine. And we know that this is going to be important to another group of people, the Turkish community and Turkish government. It's a thrill to take on this challenge, and we're looking forward to it.
We early on got involved with Facchina. Knowing that I'd worked with them before, we kind of knew what we were getting from a quality, from a safety, from a schedule point of view. I remember going over there on a regular basis and seeing all the hard work that they were doing, and then conference calls and meetings with the architects to make sure that fit in with their vision, and also with the owner to make sure that it all fit in with their final vision.
On this project, we're dependent on Facchina. You need to work with a specific group of people that have the mindset to take on something very complex, very challenging. And this job was managed well from the beginning.
The uniqueness of this job is something that I'm sure I'll be putting on my resume for 20, 30, 40 years to come. You don't get jobs like this but once in a lifetime.